used to think I was hard to replace. Not in a cocky way, just specific. My coffee, my playlist, my dumb potted basil that always died in late October. I liked my little Studio Plus in the old brick building at the edge of downtown. A view of the laundromat neon, the hum of buses, a fire escape I never used but loved looking at when it rained. When my landlord raised the rent, I did what everyone does now. I put up a spare room post. The second room was really a curtained-off den with a window, but I staged it well. Lamp, throw blanket, fake plant that looked expensive. She messaged me at 1:07 a.m., the kind of hour when only night shift nurses and people in trouble are awake. Her name was Aria. Quiet, tidy, just got hired at a design studio, she wrote. Can pay 2 months up front. The next morning, she arrived with a backpack, a smile that felt practiced, and a reference from an older woman who called her sweet and helpful. I believed it. I wanted to believe anything that would keep me from packing my life into storage and moving back to my mother's condo where the TV is always too loud. Aria was careful at first. She washed her dishes, she labeled her food, she laughed at the right moments. The first week, she brought me coffee from the cart by the bus stop and remembered I took oat milk. The second week, she asked about my job at the nonprofit magazine and told me she loved my cover stories, small miracles about the city, interviews with choir teachers and cobblers, and a woman who rehabs pigeons. You write the way people talk when they're not trying to impress anyone, she said, and it was the exact compliment I didn't know I'd been waiting to hear. Small things slipped. My knitted cardigan disappeared and reappeared on the hook by her door with a faint citrus smell that wasn't mine. A playlist I used for writing popped up on her phone speaker. Same order, same weird deep cut from a band that never made a second album. I told myself it was proximity. That's what roommates do, osmosis. The first time I saw her at our mirror tracing my eyeliner the way I do, I laughed and called her out. "It's a wing, not a runway," I said. She blushed and said, "You just make it look easy." 2 months in, I trusted her with the super key. Our landlord keeps one master for the hallway log, and when the buzzer breaks, we take turns letting delivery people in. I put the key on a blue lanyard that used to be my gym's. "You're a lifesaver," she said. She hugged me like a person who had learned hugging from movies. Things went wrong slowly. It started with my mail. Bank envelopes with my name arrived opened, slit so neatly I didn't notice until the third one when the seam didn't line up. "USPS is wild lately," Aria said, shaking her head sympathetically. Around the same time, my editor forwarded me an email that I'd allegedly sent at 2:13 a.m., a resignation letter, bottle brave and cruel. "I didn't write that," I said, terrified of the things she was already scrolling. "I know," my editor replied, "but it came from your account." IT checked and found the login from our apartment's IP address. I changed my password and cried into my coat in the stairwell like a teenager. The next afternoon, Aria texted, "Everything okay?" And then, a minute later, "Made soup. Want some?" She set a bowl on the table and touched my wrist lightly, as if reassuring a wounded animal. I told her about the email. She shook her head. "You should call your provider and get a new router," she said. "Sometimes they leave default admin passwords. Anyone can get in." It was the right answer, so I trusted it. I'd never noticed how often she borrowed my words until I heard them come back to me from someone else's mouth. At an office mixer I dragged her to, my friend Tasha asked Aria what she did for fun, and Aria said, "I like long city walks where I count the dogs I'd adopt if I were brave," which is a line I'd written in a column 2 years ago. Tasha laughed and pointed at me. "That's so you," she said. "I know," Aria replied, and looked at me like a dare. I tried to pull away. I started locking my bedroom door. I stopped leaving my laptop open when I made tea. The first night, I slid the chain across my door. Aria knocked softly and asked if I was mad at her. I can feel when people are mad, she whispered, her eyes glassy in the hall lights. I lied. Just tired. She nodded and backed away like a cat. The week everything snapped, I got a call from my bank. We're calling to verify a change on your account, the rep said cheerfully. New mailing address. She read an address across town, a building with glossy lobby plants and a view of the lake. I didn't change my address, I said, and my heart outran my body. Oh, said the rep. Well, the form has your signature. I asked for a copy. It arrived an hour later in my inbox, a PDF of my handwriting, my loops, my slant, copied from somewhere, dropped onto a form that had been notarized by a man whose name I'd never heard. I printed it, carried it to the kitchen table, and stared until the text doubled. Arya came home and set down a brown paper bag. She said, I got your favorite dumplings. I didn't answer. She poured soy sauce into the small blue bowl I use and tapped her chopsticks against her palm. Liv? She asked. What's wrong? I slid the paper across the table. She read it, her face a smooth lake. Finally, she said, You should file a police report. Then, as if offering a blanket, she added, I can go with you. I was not brave, but I was not completely stupid. No, I said. I'll handle it. That night, I couldn't sleep. The apartment sounded different, as if the pipes were listening. Around 2, I heard our lock turn. I sat up, my mouth instantly dry. The chain on my bedroom door was set. The living room light snapped on, then off. A quick test. Footsteps padded to the kitchen. The refrigerator opened. A glass clinked. I told myself to breathe. After a few minutes, the footsteps moved back to the front door. It tested the deadbolt and left. In the morning, Arya poured coffee like nothing had changed. She said, We're out of oat milk. I'll grab some after work. I watched her hands and tried to see them as hands, not as instruments. I told myself I would call the bank, the police, the landlord. Instead, I called Maya. Everyone needs one friend who believes you before the evidence does. Maya works IT at a legal clinic and has a hobby of making spreadsheets about people who thought they could get away with things. I showed her the notarized form and the bank envelope that arrived already open. I told her about the 2:13 a.m. email and the router. She peered at the PDF and nodded to herself. The signature's lifted, she said. The pixels around it look like a cutout. And the notary stamp is a JPEG, pasted at 96 dpi. Real stamps scan cleaner. She opened my laptop, checked the admin page for the router, and didn't even smile when she found the default password still set. Congrats! You've been living in a house with unlocked windows.
We changed everything. Router login, email passwords, 2-factor on every account I could remember. Maya installed a door camera I'd been putting off because I didn't want to feel like a landlord. You have to decide if you want to be safe more than you want to be cool, she said. And I realized I did. 2 days later, the camera paid rent. A clip arrived on my phone at 3:41 a.m. Arya in a hoodie with the super key, sliding into our apartment, moving with a care that looked like guilt. She carried a tote bag. She left 9 minutes later, the bag heavier. When I confronted her at breakfast, I expected denial. What I got was disappointment. You looked at the camera? She asked, like I'd broken an agreement. She leaned against the counter and blinked, slow. It's not how it looks, Liv. How does it look? I asked, my voice shaking. Because it looks like you're stealing my mail at 4 a.m. It looks like I'm picking something up for you. You got a delivery. I thought it would get stolen. She said it like a kindergarten teacher gently redirecting a child. What was in the bag? Dumplings, she said with the barest flicker of a smile. I recorded the conversation on my phone on the table, the screen black. I'm changing the locks, I said. Her face went blank. You can't, she said. My name is on the lease. It wasn't. I knew it wasn't. I'd never added her because the landlord charges for names the way airlines charge for bags. No, I said quietly. It isn't. She met my eyes and something passed between us that felt like the truth in another language. She picked up her mug, rinsed it, and set it gently in the rack. We shouldn't fight. We're the same. I laughed and heard the edge in it. We aren't. She left for work, and I called the landlord. He sighed the way men sigh when paperwork lives in a drawer they don't feel like opening. You can change the locks if you give me a key. Don't get me in the middle. Maya came with the locksmith and snacks. We swapped locks by dinner and toasted with seltzer. That night, I slept with the chain on and the door camera notifications turned to only if human. At 1:22 a.m., the camera buzzed. I opened the app expecting to see Aria. Instead, I saw a man I didn't recognize, mid-30s, shaved head, carrying a clipboard. He took a picture of my door. He took a picture of the buzzer panel. He left a note tucked under the frame. I waited 5 minutes and opened the door a crack. The note read, "Notice to vacate for lease violation with a form number," and a date that put my stomach on a tilt-a-whirl.
Maya read it and swore. "It's a fake," she said. "Wrong font. And your landlord would email you and CC his cousin who calls himself building manager in all caps." She lifted the bottom corner and showed me the edge of a watermark printed on cheap printer paper. Someone wants you to panic. Someone. Not something. Not a system. A person. The next morning, I called Aria's design studio. The number went to a co-working space where a woman named Jules said, "Oh, Aria, she's day use only. No fixed desk. Pretty girl. Great nails." I asked if Aria had shown any portfolio. Jules laughed. "People come here to take video calls and pretend they have coworkers. I don't ask questions if they pay on time." I Googled the notary from the form and found a man who had died in 2021. His name lived on in a PDF stamp that anyone could lift and paste. I searched the address the bank tried to change me to and found a building where the concierge likes to gossip in reviews. "Quiet, lots of Amazon boxes, friendly dogs," wrote a woman named Kia. The Google photos showed a lobby plant I recognized from Aria's Instagram, a rubber tree in a gold pot with a scratch on the rim. She geotagged it once by accident. I clicked through her photos and saw versions of my life, my cafe, my bus stop, my sweater, my friends' faces at parties I'd invited her to. In one, she posed on my favorite bench in the park, wearing my cardigan in my color, the caption, "Finding Home." I went to the address in a hat and the kind of sunglasses people wear when they're trying to be a joke. The concierge didn't even look up when I walked in. I waited by the mailboxes pretending to check my phone until Aria stepped out of the elevator with the tote bag and my cardigan. She saw me and didn't flinch. She smiled like we'd agreed to meet. "Liv, you found it." "Found what?" I asked. "Your other place," she said, like we were playing house. She walked past me and out into the bright air. I followed. On the sidewalk, I grabbed her arm. She looked down at my hand like it was a caption under a photo. "Let go," she said softly. "People will think you're crazy." "Who are you?" I asked, low enough that only she and the rubber tree could hear. "Really?" She cocked her head. "Who are you?" she asked back. "Really?" I went home and cried the old kind of cry, the one you do with your whole body. When I could breathe again, I opened the door to my bedroom closet and pulled down the shoebox with my high school things, photos, ticket stubs, a letter I'd never sent to my father. Underneath, a copy of my birth certificate my mother had given me just in case. A second name written lightly in the corner of the hospital record, then crossed out, Ari. Someone had started to write a name and stopped. I called my mother. She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "I was 20. I was an idiot. There was another baby before you. I gave her up. Closed adoption. I never told anyone. I thought, when I had you, that I could start again." "Her name?" I asked. "I don't know," she whispered. I only knew the first letters. I asked the nurse to write them down for me, and then I told her to stop. Arya had chosen me, or she had known me before I knew her. Either way, the ground under my apartment tilted. I told Maya, and she stared at the little letters on the old paper and said, "It explains the obsession. It doesn't excuse it." We went to the police with the video of Arya entering at night, the forged form, the fake notice, the notary stamp from a dead man. Detective Park listened and took notes and said, "This is identity theft and harassment. The family piece is complex, but not legally relevant unless she's accessed protected records." He asked if I felt safe. I told him the truth, only when I wasn't home. He suggested a safety plan. I told him I had a friend with a cat and a couch. He smiled. That's step one. I packed a bag while Maya watched the hallway feed from the Fern camera. At 10:42 p.m., Arya came home, tried the new lock, and laughed silently at the camera as if we were playing charades. She held up a key, my old blue lanyard key, and waved. Maya muttered something about me never getting a key with branding again. Arya left. At 2:19 a.m., the clipboards came back, the shaved head man and another with a toolbox. They jimmy-tapped the buzzer until a sleepy neighbor let them in. At my door, they fumbled. The new lock held. They left a second notice, more official looking with the city seal they'd printed too small. Park picked both notices up the next morning. "These two are likely freelancers," he said. "Sometimes stalkers outsource intimidation. They call themselves process servers online. If we tie them to her, it's more charges." I moved to Maya's for a week. The cats learned my name. My editor gave me time and an assignment about tenant scams that I wrote as if my fingers were trying to set a record. Arya texted twice. "We should talk," and "I forgive you." I blocked her. She made a new number. I blocked that too. The landlord called to ask when I'd be returning the super key. "I did," I said. He paused. "Then how is it working for the package room?" he asked. We both understood at the same time. "I'll change the building locks," he said, sounding like a man who could already hear the complaints. When I finally went back to the apartment, I did it at noon on a Saturday when the hallways are full of laundry baskets and neighbor kids. I opened the door and smelled something faint and chemical. My bedroom had been opened and not quite closed. The shoebox on the closet shelf had moved a 1/4 inch. On my pillow lay a photograph of a hospital bassinet with a pink card clipped to the side. The corner torn off, the handwritten letters, Ari visible, the rest missing. On the back, in a careful, childish hand, "Finding home." I stirred very still. Then I picked up the photo with a tissue and put it in a plastic folder. I walked into the living room and opened every window. I sat at the table and wrote 3 pages in a notebook I keep for emergencies, which is how I learned I had been waiting for this one. When I finished, I called Park. He came with gloves and a calm that felt like a blanket. "More charges," he said softly. "More proof." Arya didn't come back that night. She came back 3 mornings later at 6:03 a.m. with the locksmith she'd booked under my name. The door camera got it all. The argument, the locksmith checking ID, Arya handing him a photo of me and saying I cut my hair. The locksmith shaking his head and leaving anyway. She looked straight into the camera then, smiled with all her teeth, and said, "You're welcome," like a woman leaving a casserole on a porch. Park arrested her that afternoon outside the co-working space with the rubber tree. In the end, the charges were messy but solid. Mail theft, identity theft, unlawful entry, harassment, attempted eviction by forged notice. The story she told the detective was as old as family. She had always wondered, she had found me, she had wanted to be close. "You could have knocked," he said. "You could have asked." "It wouldn't have worked," she replied. "People like her always say no." People like me. I thought about that for a long time. I didn't go to every hearing. I went to the last one. Aria wore a sweater of mine I hadn't even noticed missing. The judge told her that desire is not a license. The lawyer told her that love is not a defense. She looked at me only once, and there was nothing in her eyes but the mirror she had wanted me to be. When it was over, I didn't feel victorious. I felt correctly named. Life is quieter now, and I hear it. The basil still dies in October. The buses still sigh at the corner. I changed apartments because I wanted windows on two sides and a door that hadn't learned my fears. I still write about small miracles. Sometimes I write about how they require paperwork. My mother and I are learning how to talk without apologizing for who we used to be. We don't say Aria's name much. When we do, we use the whole thing. Some nights I stand at my new fire escape and look down at the city that held me and tried to take me apart. I'm not irreplaceable, and that turns out to be the best part. I don't have to hold myself together alone. Maya texts me photos of Case like a proud parent. Tasha drags me to karaoke and promises never to let anyone sing Creep on my watch. My editor says my sentences are sharper now, as if the blade inside me found a useful job. I changed my router password to something ridiculous and long, and when the prompt asks me if I want to save it, I laugh out loud. Yes, I want to save it. I want to save all of this. There's a bench in the park where I used to sit and count the dogs I'd adopt if I were brave. I sit there now and don't count. Courage, it turns out, is less about the dogs you could love and more about the names you won't let anyone else wear. I still wear eyeliner with a small wing. Some mornings I mess it up on purpose just to prove I can erase a line and still be me. When strangers ask me for directions, I tell them kindly and then go my way. I go home to a door that opens with a key only I have, a feeling only I get to name, a life that will never be perfect again, but is finally exactly mine.